The UN's shipping agency, the International Maritime Organization, says it's seeking more details on President Trump's announcements, but it reaffirmed its opposition against fees for sailing through international waterways. The IMO says there is no legal basis through which to introduce mandatory tolls simply to transit through a strait. Now, let's bring in Marc Weller. He is the director of the Global Governance and Security Center, and he's also the head of International Law Program at Chatham House, joining us live from London. Very good to have you on the program, sir. So Trump said it, Rubio said it, the Strait of Hormuz was going to be open without any tolls. But now Trump says he is going to charge ships 20% to pass. So would it be more okay for the U.S. to charge tolls than Iran, even though actually Iran has sort of half the strait in its own waters, but obviously none of it is in American waters?
No, international law applies equally to all. And even a state through whose territory or territorial waters a strait used for international navigation runs is not entitled in any way to inhibit shipping, and certainly is not entitled to charge a toll. The only exception would be modest navigational fees or other costs involved in facilitating navigation. The US has no right to appoint itself the guardian of the world, or some such term. The initial announcement from Mr. Trump sounded like all ships have to pay 20%, which is extraordinarily high in relation to their cargoes for passage protected by the US. The US Navy apparently is already walking back as we had it previously. And I think we'll have to wait a little bit until we hear what the actual plan is. Perhaps it's a voluntary scheme that states are meant to contribute to the force level the US needs to impose in order to maintain some sort of passage. But even then, it's not sure that states can be assured that their shipping will be safe. You saw missile and drone attacks recently, which did occur while the US was already attempting to secure passage.
Well, you're absolutely right, Mark. The post from Donald Trump says a rate of 20% is going to be applied on all cargo shipped through that Strait of Hormuz. But what does UNCLOS, the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, say about these things?
Neither the US nor Iran have ratified UNCLOS, but the principles on what is called transit passage through a strait used for international navigation, which is an area where there's no other seaway available, like the Strait of Hormuz, must, under all circumstances, in war and in peace, not be impeded. Passage must always be open. There is no right for either Iran or the United States to impose fees or to render passage unlawful or dangerous to any state that fails to comply with this demand. The International Maritime Organization initially already condemned this, which is an international body linked to the UN. It's not a US agency. And that is undoubtedly right. But they've also said, well, let's wait and see what the US actually means, because President Trump sometimes is talking a little bit loosely.
So just to really dig into this, Donald Trump said he was going to charge this fee for providing safety and security to this very volatile section of the world. Is that something that he could use to argue for the right to charge a fee, sort of a service fee there?
Well, if it's voluntary, so if it's not addressed to all ships without exception, but if states can opt in and pay the US some sort of contribution towards maintaining security, that would be a different matter. The way it was presented initially, it seemed to be mandatory. More or less, the US, by imposing its own blockade, has in a way justified Iran's counter-blockade, or vice versa, the two kind of balancing one another in terms of illegality. And that gives, in a way, the US the reason to impose a security charge in relation to a conflict which it has generated itself. So that is also a little bit unfortunate, I think.
That is Marc Weller, the director of the Global Governance and Security Center, and he's also the head of the International Law Program at Chatham House, joining us live from London. Thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Thank you.